Welcome to Future Back Drinking, brought to you by PepsiCo and Time. I'm your host, Dr. Athina Kanioura, and as PepsiCo CEO of Latin America and Global Strategy and Transformation Officer, I believe it's incredibly important to speak with today's industry leaders about the technologies, innovations, and ideas that are certain to impact all of us. Future Back Drinking is not just a podcast. It's a journey through the now into the next. And joining me is my co-host, Priyanka Aribindi. Hello, Priyanka.
Hi, Athena. It is great, as always, to be back with you today for our final episode of our season.
I know.
Season 2 of Future Back Drinking has featured so many incredible guests and insightful conversations on such a range of ideas. We've covered technology and innovation, design and creativity, AI and the future of work, and leadership in a new age. But for our Season 2 finale, we wanted to do something special. We decided we wanted to turn the questions back around to you. I think it's a chance to reflect a little bit on what surprised you, what challenged you, maybe even what changed the ways that you think. So this is usually your line, but today I'm going to ask if we can start things off with a quick cheers.
Cheers.
So this show is named after the concept of future back thinking, which is a practice that's really central to your work. So I would love to hear from you a little bit about what future back thinking means and how you apply it in your work and your leadership.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So when we were discussing with Time how we're going to name the series, and with our great production team here from PepsiCo, we thought, okay, what do we want to do with the company? We want to make the company future fit. How do we make the company future fit? By implementing this notion of future back thinking. If I were to think of what the company could be and what is the potential of the organization in the next 2, 3, 5 years, how should I think of the company differently in terms of culture, capabilities, technology, people and skills that come with that, and subsequently, what does the transformation journey of PepsiCo should look like to be able to drive this change from within, but with all the external signals that can drive the change for PepsiCo.
Is there something that you are thinking about now for the next, you mentioned 2, 3, 5 years, that you are applying future back thinking to as we speak?
Firstly, I have to say I'm very proud of the journey so far, and I want to include all the ExCom and our chairman and CEO, and of course the board and our people. This has been a very rewarding journey, bringing the company at the frontier of the transformations and the adoption of technology and change the way we are not just thinking and designing our future, but also how we are implementing as we speak this change in every aspect of the business. So firstly, I'm grateful of the journey so far. Now, if I were to think of the journey that is to come, I've made very clear commitments that by end of 2026, this company will be an agentic first company, right? So these are things already we are working on, the way we are rethinking commercial and customer experiences and customer service, on the way we engage with our employees in a much more agent-to-agent way. So already we are working on a future where agents are an integral part of how we run the organization alongside, of course, our humans and our employees. And one of the things that I'm super excited is, as we're thinking of the future where the way we run the business in our operations and in our supply chain can be amplified by humanoids, which was an episode we recently ran, it can be amplified by control towers that can be run and managed by agents, then I do see a future where our engineers and our people truly become the orchestrators of the ecosystem rather than managing the tasks in a daily basis.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the ways that you have to execute, operate what you're doing already, but also have this forward vision of what you want to achieve and how to innovate to get there. It's very dynamic work. Earlier, you touched on your journey throughout PepsiCo. Your role has evolved and expanded even during the course of our season. You went from being the Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer to also taking on the role of CEO for Latin America. What I want to know is, how do you balance the responsibilities of two huge roles? And how does the work that you do on either side inform the other?
Yeah, well, firstly, extremely good time management.
Yes.
And a great system at home to be able to support me doing both roles in a highly challenging traveling schedule.
Right.
And of course, I would like to thank my husband for the great support throughout, because I couldn't have done it without his support. Actually, when Ramon and the board gave me this responsibility, it was done in the premise that I could also leverage my existing role to truly transform a region which has always been a growth region for the organization. Because if we were to think of the footprint of Latin America, 38 markets, almost 100,000 employees, we are the biggest food and beverages company in the region. So a great grounds to be able to then transform and amplify and grow the region at a pace which is 2x, 3x the pace that we are doing now. How, though? I think the how is the interesting part, is by using technology and AI to rethink consumer engagement model by driving innovation much faster, by rethinking our portfolio choices with platforms of growth that we can take to consumers much faster. Think of our Flaming Hot. Flaming Hot was born in Latin America, right? Can we imagine we have 3 more Flaming Hot platforms similar to that can come in a year instead of 3 years? So portfolio innovation, great platform. We have an amazing opportunity because Latin America has a food culture. And a food culture means great food moments where you can create away from home experiences where, whether it's on the physical, digital, or phygital ecosystem, you can test in a much faster way by leveraging technology to provide those dark kitchens now in the hands of the consumer. So again, technology can be an amplifier of the away from home ecosystem. And then if you were to think of our go-to-market and supply chain, where we can have one plant servicing 4 markets, where we can have go-to-markets which have been historically used much more on having a push model. Now you can have automated orders, where the customers take full control of the ordering process, of what they want from us in terms of portfolio, but also be 24/7 in terms of the service component. So imagine now the world of technology, AI, and transformation and strategy that I was leading, put into end-to-end practice,
Right.
unconstrained in 30 markets, right? The sky is the limit.
Yeah.
and I believe my LATAM team is ready based on what I have seen in these past 3 months. They are definitely ready for being at the frontier of that change and growth curve of the company.
Really amazing to have someone like you who gets to do both sides of it, the strategy and then the actual application in this market. And I know you talked about so many opportunities here, but if you had to narrow it to one thing where you are like, this is what I'm most excited about to tackle immediately in this role, what would that be?
For sure, I would say getting much closer to the consumers. If you look at the Latin consumer base, although we talk about Latin America, but it's like so different from the Central America, South America. I was last week, in Argentina and Chile. And then if you go to Mexico, very different. So consumers want to be inspired. Consumers want brands that can mean something for them.
Right.
So building this emotional attachment with the consumers, but in a way that feels different, through social commerce and influencers, through brands that can amplify the way they think about the company, the way they live their day-to-day. And the fact now we have the means, the technology, and the processes to do that, this is the most exciting thing for me.
Now I want to switch gears a little bit and take a look back at our season and run through some of the major themes that we've been talking about. One of which that we hit on very early in our season is reskilling and upskilling. One of the standout moments, actually, to me throughout our whole season was in our early episode with Ravi Kumar, the CEO of Cognizant. Here is a quote from our conversation with Ravi Kumar.
Because expertise is going to be on our fingertips, easily available at lower cost, marginal cost, and at some point of time it will be zero. And if that's the case, are you going to give a premium for expertise, or are you going to give a premium for interdisciplinary skills? The reason why I think interdisciplinary skills will play an important role is if you're a technologist, if you're deep in a domain, you're going to get some premium. If you have skills at the intersection of the two, if you are a biology major with computing skills, you could actually crack drug development cycles. If you are a history major with computing skills, you could be a futurist. So interdisciplinary will be the new premium versus the premium we give for deep expertise in a domain.
So with AI changing so much about the needs of our businesses, especially in entry-level roles, what skills and qualities do you think we will still consider essential in the future of work?
Firstly, I have to say in PepsiCo for the past 6 years, we have invested exactly in upskilling, reskilling throughout all our employee base. We're talking about more than 320,000 people, everything from core digital and foundational skills of AI and technology to much more softer skills on the importance of change management, cultural components, social impact, and sustainability. So we feel every employee needs to have exposure to everything that this company means, from social responsibility, of how we engage with communities, and of course the role of the foundational skills that you need to have to do your job. Now, as we know very well, in the past 2.5 years, technology has truly changed the way we are thinking about work. So we went from thinking about job descriptions to skills and skills taxonomy. So if I were to think of the skills of the future, for sure you need some type of specialization. It's not like we will go from suddenly needing expertise on talent management or learning to not needing people who can manage the talent workflow in an organization in the HR department, right? So you still need some specialization. But this specialization won't be enough. So you need people who can think horizontally, where the generalization comes into the mix, but do have some vertical capability where they can provide incremental value comparing to the generalist. So I think organizations more and more have what we call a major and a minor. This is what already we have in the company. You have a major in terms of what informs your day-to-day in the work, but then you have a minor as it relates to how this day-to-day connects with the rest of the ecosystem of PepsiCo. So I would say this is point number one. Mm-hmm. Point number two is, as the technology matures, there will be a lot of the things that you are doing now that will be fully automated, so you don't even have to think about them.
Right.
Then the amplification of your skill set comes into the mix because you will be asked to strategize more. You will be asked to synthesize more. You will be asked to ideate more, to analyze more, comparing to what many of the employees were doing, which was much more operate rather than ideate. So that will apply in all parts of the pyramid. Now, in our current model, that happens at the upper parts of the pyramid. So as you move up, you are doing less of the manual things, you are doing less of the operations, you do much more of the transformation, thinking, strategy, etc., etc.
Right.
In the new era, this will be required by all the parts of the pyramid and not just the upper parts of the pyramid. This is what I truly believe. That's why we need to train even the new entrants to not just operate, but also ideate.
Do you think there are good ways for people to prepare for that kind of work of the future? I mean, it is challenging because so much of learning a job is doing it and being in the environment. But what do you think people can do to prepare themselves for more of the ideating, more of the strategic kind of work rather than just simply executing what someone tells them to do?
Well, I feel many companies now through their learning platforms give exactly those opportunities for people to be able to stretch their skills, across different domains, within their function, but also across function. Then the way the operating models of the company have been evolving has been much more cross-functional. So I think more and more you will see companies providing even new entrants with an opportunity to work in cross-functional teams. So what we ask from all our employees is one is try to understand what the person next to you is doing.
Right.
Be curious, ask the right questions, do the reading, spend the time and effort to understand why what he or she is doing is important for the company, right? Challenge the way of thinking and working and the way we run the business as is and try to make it better. Because from the moment you understand the root cause, then you can say, okay, maybe I can do things in a different fashion that can accelerate and amplify the way I'm bringing ROI to the company. So curiosity, number one, learning, number two, and I would say trust, number three. The historical model of many of the corporations has been do your job, focus on your silo, do it very well, and you will be super successful.
Right.
With the technology now and the promise of the technology is, technology will do much more of that, right? So what is going to be your differentiator? Your differentiator will actually be much more to synthesize across and get out of that silo. So the more people get out of this silo and think horizontally, the more you will see an evolution of, I would say, both their career, but also their emotional intelligence in an organization than before.
It's very actionable advice. I also love the way you describe it. The major minor, the being curious. It reminds me of school.
Exactly.
Another major through line that we discussed throughout this season was the balance between technology and innovation, specifically in AI with human creativity. We touched on this with a few of our guests, Don Norman, Diane Hoskins, and more. Of course, there's so much that AI can and will help us do, but I would love to hear what you think will remain the essential inputs from humans. What can AI help us with versus what will always be up to us, humans, to deliver as part of the equation?
There is no doubt that humans can have empathy that machines currently don't have. And I think it will be very hard for machines in 20 years, 30 years, for machines to have empathy. Who knows anymore if when AGI will come and what that will mean. But for sure, humans have empathy, and that cannot be replaced by the machines. And why this is important? Because empathy at its nature means you care. You care about the work, but also you care about how the work has an effect to all the humans that surround you, whether it's at the workplace or whether it's at home. So empathy creates superior outputs.
Right.
Because you truly translate what the requirement is to something that humans would connect emotionally to. That will always be, I would say, staples in how we run a business. The second, there is a lot of debate out there around creativity and what's the role of creativity in a future where AI obviously has the stimulus to run millions and billions of simulations. And no doubt, when it comes to reformulating, when it comes to refining, when it comes to amplifying, the technology now can do wonders. But when it comes to truly unique, innovative creativity, then the machine cannot do it.
Yeah.
What the machine can do is train on existing creatives, but it cannot create something that hasn't been created before.
Right.
Because, again, it lacks this emotional aspect to it that only humans can do. Because when humans create, they always create with emotion. Mm-hmm. They don't create without emotion. So I think this is where, in this world of creativity, humans will have a role to play.
Absolutely. We didn't just discuss the potentials and opportunities. We also spent a lot of time discussing the risks that are posed by AI. In our conversation with Vivian Schiller specifically, here is a quote from our conversation with Vivian Schiller.
Well, it's always challenging for leaders, particularly of big companies or institutions, but this is a particularly challenging time, I think, on two fronts. One, we're in a very evolving political environment, and I think a lot of leaders are trying to figure out how best to navigate that in very polarized times. And then for some institutions, this isn't the case for all, the AI component, which is how do you think about harnessing a technology that has the promise to bring great efficiency without losing your humanity and your duty of care for the people who are part of your workforce. So these two things together are really challenging a lot of leaders, particularly in the United States right now, but I think all over the world.
I would love to hear your perspective on the guardrails to put in place so that AI-driven efficiency doesn't erode duty of care. And I would love to know if you think that companies are doing enough right now with respect to that.
This is a topic that is very dear to my heart, and I have been working on that for at least 15 years because I firmly believe in the responsible use of technology. Now, of course, it's about AI. In the past, it was about other technologies. Automation is another one. And why we have to use the technology responsibly, and especially AI, because any technology, like every human, is not perfect. It has faults. It can have bias, sometimes more than humans, sometimes less than humans. but it can lead to outcomes that can be devastating. But in the same way that when a human does something wrong, there are repercussions, in technology right now, there aren't repercussions.
Right.
It's because we don't have a way that we can manage components of the technology in a standardized, nationwide, or even global way that everyone abides by the rules. In technology, people don't abide by the rules. Why? Because there are no rules.
Right.
There are guidelines and frameworks and maybe policies in some way. So I do agree with Vivian. There must be a point in time where policies becomes laws, where we go beyond guidelines and frameworks to actually rules of engagement. For you to have the license to operate, you need to abide by A, B, C, D, E. So in reality, what is happening now, companies are the ones that are becoming much more the rulers of the land, where they impose rules in how we run the company, on how we engage with our consumers, how we engage with the employees, to protect the ecosystem from any negative outcomes that the technology might bring to us. And governments, in reality, they are staying behind and are observing. So I think all of us are very keen, and I'm talking now on behalf of the corporations, for the governments to play the role, which is to work with us hand in hand, to put much more regulation in a way, of course, that it doesn't stifle innovation, but regulation that it protects consumers, it protects employees against all those negatives that those technologies can bring.
I think that's a very heartening answer that people would be happy to hear, that people on the corporate side want this to happen. Finally, I know we touched on so many things across our season, but one that seemed especially resonant to you was in our conversation with Dr. Laurie Santos. Here is a quote from our conversation with Dr. Laurie Santos.
For so long, we have this model of work-life balance. And I think that model is wrong, right? It's like a balance. It's like, well, as work goes up, life goes down, and it just has to be that way. If you think of different Eastern notions, they often talk in terms of work-life harmony. And I think that's what the data show, right? If you are happy at work, that's going to make your home life much happier, right? If you give people space to learn new things, to be with their family, to not have the commute every single day, those are going to make them happier and therefore more productive at work. These things aren't in tension. They really are in harmony in helpful ways. And so I think bringing in that perspective of like, oh, no, this is a harmony. This is not an either or. This is building the pie. That can be a really helpful perspective for leaders.
There was a lot there that we both really were responding to. I would love to hear more about why that idea and that conversation was so impactful for you and how you're applying that in your new role.
I loved all the episodes, but this specific one, hit home. Partly because it's, we all spend the majority of our time at work.
Right.
So the whole notion of work-life balance means I'm not happy at work and therefore I have to go home to have a true life. That's why we call it work-life.
Yeah.
Well, work-life, I have an amazing life at work. I love my colleagues. I love spending time with my teams. I'm at the office more hours than I am at home. So work harmony, it seems for me a much better suited than work-life balance. Work-life harmony means you maximize the utility, you maximize the ROI that you get from work and home. So therefore, when you are in either places, you're a very happy person. If you were to think it from that angle, just imagine how happier everyone would be, how more productive everyone would be, how this society would be a very positive society where we can do the best we can for our corporations, but we can do amazing things for the people we work with and the people we live with. So, no, it definitely hit home. It was probably the highlight of season 2 for me.
Yeah, that one, I think, challenged so many assumptions of what might make you happy versus what actually makes you happy, and didn't rest on this idea that you needed to balance out, as you were saying, your work with your life outside, that your work can genuinely make you very happy and very fulfilled, and how to kind of cultivate more of that. But I would love to hear, especially from someone who's so busy, who has so much on their plate at home and at the workplace, what does work-life harmony look like for you on a good week? And what's a sign that harmony is starting to slip?
I do remember when my oldest, I think it was like just when we got out of the pandemic, was said, "Oh, Mom, if you were to have the choice again to work or not work, what would be that choice?" I said, "Of course, every time, work." And he said, "Yeah, I say that because work makes you happy." And when you hear that from your children, they can see how happy you are when you come back from work.
Yeah.
When you work for a company that gives you this level of satisfaction, when you work with people that you find fulfilling and you have this harmony, then you do go back and you maximize, again, the ROI you get from whatever hours you have at home. So for me, when I am home, it's time with the family and with the children, with my husband, and we make the most out of that. When I am at work, it's time with my colleagues, with my teams, with my customers, and it's equally fulfilling. So I don't see fine lines. There will be moments that, 80% of my time is with my work colleagues, and there will be moments that it will be with my family. Work is family and vice versa. So sometimes I do a great job, sometimes I do a really bad job, distinguishing the two, but I'm equally happy. And I hope my teams and my husband and my children are happy as well, because it's not about separation. It is about amplification of both of them. And I'm just trying to do my best. And I hope that my best is good enough for both work and the family.
That's all we can hope for. But what a meaningful thing to hear from your son, that he sees that you are so fulfilled at work, and what an example to set that that's what you can and should get out of the work that you do. Now we are at our lightning round, the fun stuff. I know you know this, but at the end of every episode, we like to ask our guests a series of quick-hitting questions to get to know them on a more personal level. Athina, are you ready for the tough questions?
I am ready.
All right. First up, what is an underrated quality that you think makes for a great leader?
This is a very recent theme. I had a discussion with my S&T team. I believe in leaders and not managers. I think many people manage teams, they don't lead teams. So a leader needs to set a mission and a vision and help his or her team reach the destination, rather than manage the teams in a day-to-day basis. So let's be leaders and not managers.
Got it. When you need to recharge or spark new ideas, what do you do outside of work, or even, within your workday?
Oh my. Okay, there are 3 things I do. I love cooking. I like baking. Especially between cooking and baking, I love baking a lot. So that's one for sure.
Me too.
The second, I like walking. And the third one is I like reading. I like reading anything.
Yeah.
So some people think, Athina probably likes reading the most scientific. I can read anything from a novel and a sci-fi book to, of course, highly sophisticated statistics or mathematics textbooks. I just love reading.
All right. I find walking especially is a good one for new ideas. They just come to you.
That's why I cannot run. I find running stressful.
Yes, I agree with you. What PepsiCo drinks or snacks from outside of the U.S. region are your favorite ones?
Okay, I have to be careful because my Latam team is probably listening. Okay, I absolutely love all our potato chips brands. The Sabritas, the Margaritas, the Lay's, the Ruffles.
Yum.
I mean, if you ask me, I'm a huge, huge fan of PC or potato chips. So we have various brands in Latin America, all our PC brands, amazing brands.
I'll have to try that next time I travel.
Oh, you have to try. You have to try. It's, in Latin America, we like also our spices in RPC category. So we have some amazing, unique tastes for you. Next time, Priyanka, you need to come over. We love flavors. We love flavors. Yes.
How is a CEO like the conductor of an orchestra? I know that is an analogy that you have been using a lot lately.
I don't believe in high-performing leaders. I believe in high-performing teams. And if you were to think of an orchestra, you need everyone to work together in harmony. So everyone needs to play in a specific tune. So how do you tune in your team to operate like an orchestra? Right? So my aspiration and my ambition always with all my teams, smaller teams and bigger teams, is they need to find their own harmony, and like playing in a concert, They need to play in tune. They need to play together. They need to know which one should lead versus the other one supporting, and then switching roles. And it needs to show that it's effortless.
Right.
So that's why I say in an orchestra.
And finally, it would not be a Future Back Drinking podcast without this question. Athina, if you could choose one person to have a drink with, who would it be?
Okay, that's the easiest because I think I have been...
Really?
I have been very public. If there was one person I would die to have a drink with, is Marie Curie.
Really?
It's absolutely. I mean, ever since I was a young girl, and you asked me, okay, the one person you idolize, it has been her. 2 Nobel Prizes, different disciplines, first ever, physics, chemistry. A woman who, despite, the constraints of her era and how she grew up, she was idolized by also men in terms of her brain, highly recognized in her field, and took bets, took risks throughout her journey and really revolutionized science. So I would die to meet her.
I love that answer. It also gives me so much insight into you and who you are. So I love that. Athina, I could ask you questions all day.
Hey, let's keep something for next year.
Yes, we'll save some. Thank you so much, Athina, for having me. I've loved being a part of these conversations. Opened my eyes to so much that is going on and so much to look forward to with these innovations. And thank you so much to the team from Time for having me.
No, thank you. Thank you so much, Priyanka, for being such an amazing partner. I mean, you brought new ideas, new thinking. So truly thank you. And I think with that, we set up on season 2. We hope that you all enjoyed the conversations. We are extremely thankful to you all for joining us on season 2 of Future Back Drinking. To all our listeners, if you haven't already, now is a great time to go back and listen to all of our amazing episodes and guests from this season. Thank you so much again, Priyanka, for being an amazing co-host. And of course, thank you to the team at Time for being such great partners. Stay tuned. There is more in the works for this partnership. I don't know. Could it be a season 3 or some other format?
We'll see.
More to reveal at the later phase. As always, please be sure to like, subscribe, and stay connected with us on all your favorite podcast platforms. So until next time, take care.